welcome to Out and About with Trev. This is going to be a bit of an interesting episode. I'm actually getting ready for a really interesting hike. It's going to be a very special hike. My mum and dad, they taught me a lot as I was growing up. My dad, he'd previously been in the army, and he taught me about the bush. Taught me a lot of things and really got me into going bushwalking. My mum loved going up into the mountains, and unfortunately they're both gone now. My mum's ashes are scattered at JB Plain. That was a place she really loved, and my dad's down in Bright, down on the canyon at a place he loved. Later in the year, or toward the end of November, I turned another year older, and this one's a bit of a big one. I turned 50. I wasn't sure how I really felt about all that. And I decided to wrap it up into a big hike, going from where my mum is all the way to Bright, where we lived for about 30 years, and where Dad is. And along the way I turned 50, so woohoo to that. It's just made me feel a whole lot better about the whole time. Instead of feeling a bit doom and gloom about it, I'm getting very excited about this hike. It's going to be the biggest hike I've ever done, both in days and kilometres. So that's a bit of an FU to getting older. And there's a couple of other things in it. More on that later. What I thought I'd show you this week is, I've already shown you the snow hike I did at JB Plain last year. That was a bit of a hit out. Check out the new tent. At the time, I just bought my WE Second Arrow tent, and I wanted to see how it functioned on snow. I got to see that. But actually a month after that hike, I did a really cool hike across the Razorback, which goes from Mount Hotham to Mount Feathertop. It was an awesome trip. There's about 1 metre of snow, and it didn't quite go to plan, but sometimes that's the way it goes. So have a look at this. It was an awesome time. There was lots of snow, and like I say, all these hikes are in preparation for me ultimately knocking over the Australian Alps walking track. This is something that's been on my mind for a number of years. I've been working towards it. Everything I've done over the last few years in terms of hiking has been to get me to a place where hopefully I can have a crack at it. And so I'm going to do this hike at the end of November. Straight after that, I've got another hike. I'm actually going to have Christmas up on Mount Bogong, and doing some big days and just sort of making sure that I'm ready to go. And then straight after I get back from that one, and we'll straight into the new year, I'm going to actually launch my campaign to do the AAWT. I'm going to need help. I'm going to need logistics support. Anyone out there with a four-wheel drive that loves going camping, have I got a trip for you? It might be a team of people. I'd love to have a bit of a support team in case things go wrong. More on that later. But for the moment, here's my trip across the Razorback. And in upcoming episodes, I'll detail a little bit more about this hike. This is going to be a very special one. This is the most I've never been as excited about a hike as for this one. This is going to be awesome. Anyway, guys, check this out. Back in Bright. This is where I used to live. I lived up here for about 30 years, and I'm looking forward to getting on the Razorback, which goes from Mount Hotham across to Mount Feathertop. I've never done it on this much snow, but it's going to be a really great trip. The weather looks like it's going to be great for the next few days, and I should be able to get some good shots, and looking forward to getting across the Razorback. I haven't actually been to Feathertop for a little while, and like I said, I've never done it on this much snow, so this is a really good chance to really have a decent hit out with me snowshoes and all my gear. So I've had to squeeze it in between a few different things. So anyway, I'm waiting for the bus. It doesn't leave till 3:30, but it's really great that the Omeo Bright bus comes over from Omeo every day and takes people back. And this is the only way I can get up to the areas where I can go bushwalking. So really appreciate that.
We climb the greatest heights. it's about 20 to 5. I've just been dropped off at right opposite Diamantuna Hut, and there's nowhere near as much snow as there was here 3 weeks ago, but it doesn't matter, there'll be more than enough for me to play with. Tomorrow I'm heading out across the Razorback over towards Mount Feathertop, but for the moment I've got probably an hour of sunlight left. I'm going to take advantage of that, and I'm just going to go down here, find a little spot, dig a little bit of the platform, and try and get the tent set up before it gets dark. So that's the rest of today's mission, and then I can sit back, cook up a cuppa, chill out, and cook up some dinner later. Like I say, this is not too bad at all. So it's 6:15. Sun's just gone down. Over here you can't quite really see it anymore, but it's Mount Cobbler, and opposite me is Mount Buffalo, and there's still quite a bit of snow up here. During the week many people told me that there wouldn't be any snow because it's got too warm and it's all melted, but I tried to tell them that there's so much that it would take a while to melt. I reckon I'm on I'm actually right at the very start of the Razorback, and where I am is probably, I don't know, maybe 50-60 centimeters of snow, maybe a little bit more. So that's I mean, that's still more than enough to camp on. I'm just boiling up a billy to have a cuppa, and then I'm going to cook up some dinner. This is I must say, this is probably the most relaxed start to a hike I've had. All the hikes I've done travelling since moving to Melbourne and travelling up on public transport. I mean, I got dropped off, I've walked a few hundred metres off the road, just close enough, just far enough that I'm sort of away from the traffic, and you know, I'm on the very start of the Razorback, so it's looking pretty good. As you can see, the sun's going down, and I've got the lights of the cars coming up the Great Alpine Road, and beautiful view. I've actually parked here, taken a little bit of a risk. I'm pretty sure the wind's not going to be too fierce tonight. A bit of a chance, you know, I'm on an exposed ridge, but I'm bunkered in pretty good, and the tent's meant to be able to handle a fair bit of wind, so I'm fairly confident I'll be right. But
if it all goes to plan, what I should wake up to tomorrow is a fairly specky sunrise. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, like I said, once again, I'm out here in the snow. I mightn't be too far away from the road. You can probably hear the road not too far away. Top of Bonnecourt Spur. Bonnecourt Spur runs down here and it taps out at Harritville. Back up here behind me, this is where I've come from. That's the Great Alpine Road that heads Mount Hotham's over there. And I started, you can just see Diamantina Hut on the opposite side of the road. And I was just camped this side of the road, and it was great. Had a good night's sleep. Now, this is where I'm heading. You can't quite see Mount Feathertop at the moment. It's got its head in the clouds, so that's the way it goes sometimes. But I'm going to go down here, up onto this sort of Alright, sometimes the easiest way to get down the hill is to just slide down. So here I am, just sliding down on my butt. It's a bit safer than trying to stand up and all you do is fall over. So here we go. Woohoo-wee! Just gotta put the brake in. Bit of a course correction. That's it. Now, hey, woohoo! Here we go. And we can let go of the brake. Bit of get up and go with the snowshoes. And there we go. That's what I've just come down. Woohoo! That's what I've got to go up. Alright, so it's come to this. Basically the last kilometre just absolutely destroyed me. I was knackered. I mean, obviously people will say, well, I should be fitter. Well, you know, I do a lot of walking, but also I'm 48, so I'm getting there. In only a month and a half I turned 49, which is getting horribly close to 50. So I just got, as I came up over the hill here, and this is a place called Twin Knobs, and it's marked on the map, and it's not very far from the
top of Diamantuna Spur where I plan to camp. It's only just over the hill, and Federation Hut's only sort of a couple of K around the corner. The other thing that I think this clearly shows is how important it is to carry a decent tent when you're out in these sorts of areas. It might sound silly, but there are people who are coming out into the bush, even in conditions like this, and they're not carrying a tent. What they're doing is they're relying on the huts for accommodation, which isn't what they're there for. What the huts are there for is for somewhere for day visitors, bushwalkers, skiers to come past and get some shelter out of the weather conditions if it's really bad, or it doesn't matter if it's a sunny day. You can sit in there and just relax. That's not a problem. You can also use them. They're great to go in and cook your meals up, chat with friends. Awesome. But they are not there as an accommodation service. These huts all around this area are run by Parks Victoria, and they state very clearly not to be used for accommodation. Whether or not you get caught and anything's going to come out of it if you do stay in a hut, and I'll admit I've slept in the huts too, but I've always had a tent. And we've always had the viewpoint that we've been at a hut and there's no one else there, and occasionally we've slept in the hut for maybe on the last night of a hike and we wanted to make sure our tent was dry for travelling home, things like that. You know, I've been on snow trips, I've camped in Cleeve Cole Hut, but I've always had the viewpoint that if someone stumbled in at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the morning and they needed the hut as an emergency place for them to get out of the weather, I would go out and set up my tent. But like I said, there are people that are coming out and they're not bothering to carry their tent. These are the same people that have a crack at me, tell me I carry too much gear. Right? Right now I want to say to all of those people who think they know what they're doing, well, I better not say what I want to say, but what would have happened today? If I was relying on getting to the hut, and I'm sure over the next hour or 2 hours maybe, I would have made it, I would have stumbled in, I would have been absolutely knackered. But what would I be risking? I could pull a muscle, and then where I'm at. Something else, you're tired, you trip over, you fall, all sorts of things can go wrong. I got to here and I was just tapped. Because I'm carrying my accommodation on my back, bang, hey, this looks like a spot, let's set up. And that's the freedom of making sure you carry all your own kit. I don't have to make sure I get to the hut. I would have liked to have, but there you go. My plans were actually to camp at the top of Diamantuna Spur anyway. Similar spot to this. This is probably more specky. So there you go. But I just think I get annoyed because recently on a hike, I had a group of people. I was camped down in West Kiwa, and a guy said to me, he said, "You're an effing idiot for carrying so much crap." And I said to him, I said, "Mate, where did you sleep tonight?" He goes, "What do you mean?" Yeah, you're right. He slept in the hut. I wouldn't sleep in Blair's hut, to be honest. Too many rats. But anyway, they slept in the hut, him and his mate. And they weren't carrying a tent. Now, I'm sorry, but I think that is absolute stupidity. Because I've come across people, even on the Razorback here, that have sprained an ankle. Years ago, I was coming across, there was a school group, and there was a student sprained an ankle. So what the teacher did was she said, "Right, you stay here, set your tent up." And what one of the teachers said, they were going to go over until they were so far, and then she was going to go back and she was going to camp with the girl, and the next day see if they could walk out. They were about halfway along, so instead of having to walk out the whole way, they could just walk out a little bit of the way. I don't know how it turned out, but at least they could set their tent up. And I think this is where bushwalking in a lot of ways has gone a little bit funny. It used to be that you had to carry the right equipment. There are some people out there that don't want to carry a 20, 25, 28 kilo pack. Well, neither do I. But I need the stuff I've got to carry. I've got to have a tent, I've got to have a sleeping bag, I've got to have a mattress, I've got to have all my cooking gear, I've got to have food, I've got to have water. These are the things that enable me to survive. down to, yes, I've got a first aid kit, right? I've looked at my list. If I could take things out, I would. I wish the pack was half as light as it is, but it's not. So I just have to deal with it. Does that mean I'm leaving stuff out because I think, well, you know? No, I don't, because I've been caught in bad weather. I've had hypothermia. I've stumbled across, you know, out in the bush and been pushing it, and you trip over and you get cut, and you get all sorts of things can go wrong. The Australian bush is a dangerous place, right? It doesn't need to be sanitised by idiots who think they can just go out, carry sweet FA, because 9 times out of 10 it goes right. 99 times out of 10 it goes right. Because I tell you what, one day when it goes wrong, you're in deep shit. Okay, well, I was hoping there'd be a really good sunrise this morning, but I actually woke up, oh no, maybe 7 o'clock-ish, something like that. Actually, I woke up earlier. It seemed like there was a bit of sleet coming in, bit of noise in the tent, and when I poked my head out, it's completely white out, so no sunrise, unfortunately. And it hasn't got any better now. It's just after 8 o'clock, and so I've decided that what I'm going to do is firstly find the lid to my pipe. Might put a bit more snow in. Well, here I am camped at Federation Hut. Federation Hut sits at the top of Bungalow Spur, which heads down into Harriettville. I had a fairly tough trip across from where I camped last night at Twin Knobs. I had an awesome campsite. This is the new Federation Hut. This was rebuilt in 2004 after the previous hut, and here's a photo of the previous hut. This was rebuilt after the previous hut was burnt down in the 2003 bushfires, and a lot of people were fairly upset about it. It was a great little hut, had a lot of character about it. The new hut's great, don't get me wrong, but the old hut, yeah, like I say, it had a fair bit of character with it. It was awesome. And I can remember being in there for a couple of interesting nights. We had one night where we had a group of uni students turn up, all playing musical instruments, and they had a big jam session while they were drinking port and things like that all night. And that was pretty wild. I don't think I've heard so many Creedence Clearwater Revival songs being belted out repeatedly ever since. Anyway, what I've decided is, like I say, the trip across the last bit of the Razorback from Twin Knobs was pretty perilous for a couple of reasons. One, in these sorts of snow conditions, and it's fairly icy, but still soft, my snowshoes don't get a lot of sideways traction. So when I'm trying to traverse sideways along the hill, I slipped over more than, I don't know, maybe a dozen times, even more today. And that took a lot of effort to get back up on my feet sometimes. There was at least 4 or 5 occasions, if I wasn't carrying an ice axe, I'm not saying it would have killed me, but it would have been quite a journey, and I would have gone down a fair way, and I would have had to make my way back. So, you know, people always, I have some people question why I carry an ice axe, why I have it in hand when I'm walking. That's why I have it in hand, because you don't get any prior warning of when you're going to slip and fall. And we had Ton Caneen up on Feathertop some years ago, who actually, he went through a cornice and it killed him, you know. So the mountains here in Australia mightn't be as big as, you know, some of the others around the world, but nevertheless, it's a hostile environment, and you need to have the right kit, be prepared for these sorts of conditions. The other thing I'd say about conditions like this is it's very hard to navigate with a map and compass, especially on snow. I was lucky today because I was able to follow some tracks. There's been a lot of people come through in the last few days across the Razorback. I had some tracks to follow, but if I didn't, it would have been difficult. I could have just stayed on the ridge, but very easy to make a navigational error, and who knows where you end up. And that's why GPS is absolutely essential. It's absolutely essential if you're going to come out in the snow. Mine was great, also from a psychological point of view, and I actually think that bushwalking is about 60% psychological. There was one point today where I'd fallen over for the umpteenth time, and I was like, "Is it kidding me? I've got to be getting close to the end of the Razorback, to the little saddle." And I was sitting there on the snow, and I was like, I'm just about over it. And I pulled the GPS out, and I reckoned I only had 110 metres to go, and I looked at it and said, you know what, I can do 110 metres. But so that was that. What I've decided is I'm not going to go back across the Razorback. There's sections of that I just think, and the snow, we're not going to have more snow cover. If we had more snow coming, that would be one thing, but we don't. It's getting slippery, it's tricky, and I'm just not up for it. So I'm actually going to bail down Bungalow Spur. I kept saying to people, there's a couple other people here at the camp, I kept saying I'm going to dive down tomorrow, and then I looked at my watch and realised that it's Sunday, so I've actually got tomorrow here. So the next day I'll go down to Bungalow Spur. We don't get much better than this. Right behind me, that's Mount Buffalo, and right opposite, these are the views of Mount Feathertop. And down over here, well, down here we've got the Great Alpine Road, which heads down to Herritville. And So this is the top of Mount Feathertop. I may never climb, I'm never going to climb Everest or some of the big mountains, but at least I've been able to get on top of this one. It's 1922 metres high, and it's the second highest mountain in Victoria. Right behind me is the only one that's higher than this, and that's Mount Mogul, and it taps out at 1986 metres. Anyway, absolutely awesome weather. It's a great spot, and well worth the climb. This trip's been absolutely awesome. Starting to get, the snow cover's getting a little bit scratchy. I'd say, you know, another week, and it's maybe for another week it'll still be worthwhile coming up if people are looking at coming up. But I think yeah, probably another week. It's gonna go pretty quick, I think. Anyway, I've just had a skier. He's come up, but he's went straight over here. Well, since about 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon, when the last other person headed down Bungalow Spur, I've basically had sorry, I've basically had the whole of this area to myself, which has been quite nice. Yesterday was pretty much the same as this, and I reckon today's going to be another cracking day. So just to show you how unpredictable the weather can be, only at the start of the day it was beautiful and sunny. Now it's all starting to cave in. Look up behind me, see the fog's coming in, and even down this way, this is where I've got to head to go down Bungalow Spur. It's also not looking real good, so it could be an interesting trip back down. Well, it's the weather's a bit all over the place at the moment. 1 minute it's cloudy, 1 minute it's sunny, so I'm not sure what it's going to be like, but it's time to head off. So it's time to say goodbye to Federation Hut and this awesome area, and I'm certainly going to be back at some point. Alright. Well, I'm now right below the below most of the snow cover, so the pack's got a little bit heavier because I've got my snowshoes, crampons, ice axe, snow shovel, basically, oh, even goggles, not that they weigh much, basically all the snow gear on the pack. But I'm actually glad to be out of the snow. I'm sort of over it for this year, to be honest. Even today it was a bit iced up. certainly time to offload the Gortex and waterproof pants. Well out of the snow now, and it's getting warmer. What a total contrast. After spending the last, what is it, 4 days in the, in the snow, to now be walking on the track, which basically is how it's going to be for the next 6 months. It reminds me that I've come up here a number of times during summer and things like that, and this is basically what it's like. So it's yeah, sort of brings back memories of making my way up the spur. It's alright, the hoodie needs a wash anyway. So I'm probably about halfway down. So I'm sort of getting there, but it's the weather's absolutely beautiful, and it reminds me in a lot of ways of my Easter trip, where this is about what the weather was like, probably a bit warmer, but nevertheless still enjoying every minute out here in the bush. It's just great to be out here. Whew. I won't have to put them on again for this trip at least. So what I'm doing at the moment is, because I've got to camp in this area tonight, and there's quite a few sticks and little rocks and things on the ground, and unfortunately I don't have my little tarp that I normally bring, because I wasn't thinking of this being a circumstance that I need to do. I want to try and look after the tent. So what I'm doing is I'm just cutting some bits of bracken fern, and I'll lay this down sort of like this, and anyway, that'll help. And if you're wondering about me cutting up the bracken fern, I wouldn't feel too bad about the fern itself. The bracken fern's actually a survivor species. It's one of the first things that comes back after the bushfires. So the only problem is, if you're trying to take it and you want to take it home, you're not allowed to do that. But to cut some of this for this out in the bush, well, sometimes you have to. Before I leave tomorrow, I'll clear all this up and throw it over there, and I'll probably reshoot anyway. So anyway, I'll go and lay my tent on it, and we'll see if we got enough. Alright, so I've got this. The other smart thing I did, even though I wasn't thinking that this would happen, necessarily happen, and it certainly wasn't planned for. I did bring my normal tent pegs. Just a little bit of weight to carry, but I'm damn thankful I got them tonight, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do this. A bit hard to get the snow pegs into this stuff.
But we fall 1,000 times. But I'd never say goodbye or ever leave this stuff behind. When it's good, it's amazing. When it's bad, it's uneasy. I wouldn't have it another way. There's no other way. Yeah. When it hurts like this, never like never like, never like, never like, never like, never like, when it hurts.
The other sexy thing I like about this tent is these little hideaway pockets where the ropes lie. That's handy because you haven't got ropes getting in the way while you're trying to set everything up. Always put the extra ropes on, even though I don't expect much in the way of weather. You just never know. That's about it. WE second arrow, all set up. I can pull this when I let this go. So I can ratchet this down a little bit more, tighten the back up, do that, looking nice. Well, here I am at Picture Point, right at the bottom of Bungalow Spur. I've only got maybe, I don't know, kilometre a bit to go. Oh, that's that, down the bottom of Bungalow Spur. I can't remember exactly, but I reckon it'd be at least probably 6, 7, 8 times I've actually been here heading up, and it's a totally different feeling when you get to the bottom. So I haven't had to come too far today, but still been a great trip, and it's a good way to end it. The other thing that's important when you get to the end of these tracks, or the starts or end, is put your details into the trip intentions book. Emergency services, if they've got to come out looking for you, they'll actually look at the books to see whether some people have come down, ticked that they're back, and they might just be down at the pub. Saves emergency services going for a look up the track for you. So now we've got 2 books. Have to warm the pen up.
So there we go, that was that. And it was an awesome trip. I didn't actually get up to the snow this year. I was busy working on my short film project, A New Train of Thought. People will know that that's been delayed. I just couldn't get all the editing and stuff done. I couldn't get it right. I was going to rush it. I didn't want to rush it. More on that later. More on this hike later. More on this hike later. And certainly more about the my campaign to knock over the Australian Alps walking track in 2020. It's a thing. Look, people want to know how serious I am about this thing. Of all the things that me being homeless snuffed out, and it snuffed out a lot in terms of employment opportunities, and it's made it just it changed a lot. I mean, my whole family have written me off. They don't want to know me. I'd planned to do the Australian Alpine walking track in 2008. Unfortunately, at the start of 2008, I ended up homeless, so that killed that. And I thought I'd walked away from it, but I haven't. And I'm not having this thing haunt me into the future. So next year, I want to knock it over. But I am going to need help. I don't have the resources to do it on my own. I'm going to need a support team. I'm going to need other people that have got vehicles. I still don't have a vehicle. I'm doing what I can, but I'm not letting this thing go, and I'll do whatever I have to get it done. Anyway, more on that later. Cheers, guys.